It's time for the Everyman Podcast. So sit back, it's time to get your brain relaxed. So tune in almost every week as we share our thoughts that it's okay to speak. It's the Everyman, but it's for everyone. Making mental health priority one. But it's for everyone, making mental health priority one.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Everyman Podcast. Now, tonight, we do have a very special guest. We have Sophie Dalby, who is our expert in all things aesthetics, but also a qualified nurse and an all-round lovely human being. How are you doing today, Sophie? I know, what a setup, right?
I know, thank you so much. I'm doing really good, and thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited. Thank you.
No, we are too. It's something that, so we're going to talk tonight about probably a topic that us as a group of men who generally started the podcast have never, ever spoken about. We've never even come across this in sort of the conversations that we had. So when we sort of started speaking about you coming on the podcast, it was one where I was like, oh, that's really interesting to talk about aesthetics. And you said straight away, well, I'd be really interested to see what men think about aesthetics as well. So it's definitely a topic we're excited to talk about.
Anything in particular you want to start? Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all right. It's all right. I think before we go into the depth of the conversation and things, first things I would probably ask is a little bit about you. Tell the audience who you are, what you do, and why health generally is important to you.
Yeah, I'll nutshell it as best I can because I've got quite a colourful journey in terms of my career. But I did start in cosmetology at 16. And I was very lucky to start with people who were a lot older than me. And this was the early 2000s. Well, in 2000, so I started in 2016. And I say that because they were fantastic mentors. And at the time, there was a strict beauty etiquette in terms of how you had to wear your uniform, how you had to have your makeup. And potentially in today's world, that would be considered maybe not appropriate having those standards, but it was something that worked for me. I was 16, I was so young, and I was given a sense of order. I was given a sense of presentation, and I was given a sense of you come to work and you be presentable. We had a beauty menu, and we used to follow a code of conduct. Now, I don't think many companies would do that now because it could be deemed potentially a bit sexist or not appropriate, but it certainly worked for me. It paid dividends to my service standards and etiquette. And loads of my clients were older ladies. They were ladies with, I would say, a big disposable income and potentially didn't work. And I rubbed shoulders with people who were a lot older than me. I'm 16 and my clients were 56 to 60. I stayed with that company for 10 years and it was one of the best companies I've ever worked for. And then I went to uni and I went and did media studies and I worked for the BBC for a little bit. And you weren't paid at all. It was all volunteer work. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. So again, in a quick nutshell, I moved back. So I lived in Leeds in Manchester and I moved back to Newcastle. And my grandma, who I was very close to, became quite ill and had diagnostics of dementia. So I became a primary carer for my grandma. And then that's what sort of pulled me into the nursing sector. Through my grandma, I understood the preservation of dignity. So having her hair done and having her makeup done and having her clothes on. And it was imperative to her care. And then worked in private clinics and couldn't find my feet of what I wanted to do. And I ended up getting a 0-hour contract, terrible pay, but the experience gave me more than I needed in pre-operative transgender care and post-operative transgender care. So I was 25 at this point, and again, being exposed to very unique forms of surgery, mental health within the NHS. And I used to work in the feminisation workshops, so men to female and female to men. And I worked with a surgeon, and he said, you should just go and do your nursing, that you've got something there and you need to get this official. And that's how it started. So I started my nursing with looking after my grandma and working in transgender care. And I used to work with cancer services for a charity called Look Good, Feel Better, which is supporting men and women with hair loss, preservation of brows and lashes, and supporting their journey through very quite intense invasive treatment of chemotherapy and radiotherapy through the powers of makeup and skincare. So that was my nutshell.
Oh, it's definitely really interesting. And I think you touched on a few things there that kind of link to probably how you got into aesthetics then, because you were dealing with people in moments in their life and experiences in their life where probably their self-confidence and their image of themselves maybe wasn't reflecting who they or what they potentially looked like in the mirror at the time.
Yes, so a lot of patients, it was quite harrowing because a lot of patients truly believed, and I truly, I seen it firsthand, that they were entirely trapped in their body. And these were men, and I'm going to use this term, who presented very masculine, beards and thick brows and leather jackets and things like that. And at first glance, absolutely, the presentation of a man. But they'd always felt like a woman their entire life. So I'd met many men that you walk past every day that say, I utterly feel that I was meant to be a woman, and I'm just forcing this. And I got the honour of working with someone, my oldest patient was 81. We didn't do the surgical side of things. The patient, wasn't appropriate for surgery, but we did other things to transform his life from male to female.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting, actually, and I think that is obviously a slight extreme version of body dysmorphia when people want to change their sex ultimately, and I think when I look at absolutely hugely complex as well, and I think when I look back at like moments in my life where I've potentially been unhappy with how I look or how I feel within myself, I think that's something that lots of listeners potentially would be able to resonate with, because how many times do you look in the mirror and you go, oh, I don't like that wrinkle, or I don't like, I'm slightly overweight, or what, all those sort of common things. Now, Dean, I have a question for you. Now, you have probably been on a bit of a weight journey, I think that's fair to say, over time. And in the times where you haven't felt your best, if you were to reflect on that, like how did you feel versus sort of where you are today with that?
Mine's always probably been like a bit of a strange case, and like in a sense of I didn't really want to lose weight for the sake of losing weight. I was never unhappy with how I looked, because I don't know if you know, well, you might probably don't know my story, Sophie, but I was like 17, 18 stone a couple of years ago after COVID, and then I've sort of slowly lost it. But the only thing that made me want to lose weight is just under 13, 12, 13. So, but I got into football. There was this company called Man vs Fat, which was for people that were overweight to play football again, and it was that sort of inspired me. But if it wasn't for playing football, you know me, Lou, I love it. I wouldn't mind being fat. Like, it doesn't really bother us that much. I think
the word. What do you feel about the word fat? If you don't mind me asking.
It doesn't bother us really. Like, I've went up for a corner and someone shouting, "Mark the fat cunt." I don't know if I'm allowed to say the C word, like, but I don't get offended by much of that. If anything, it's Lou's got the dysphoria about me, because he always makes us change me clothes and that whenever I go out with him. It tells me that I'm not looking good enough, or I need to do me hair.
Do you know what it is, right? We will literally go somewhere. I'm one to talk about hair, right? So there's that part. There's the having the banter with your mate because he has it and he doesn't look after it.
Yeah.
That's the main one, right? But then cheers, Dave. And then the other one is more the fact that you buy clothes that are too, or you wear clothes that are too small.
Yeah, but that's slim into them. So that's what you do, isn't it? You buy the clothes too small, and then it motivates you, and then 3 years later they fit you.
So do you feel you want to lose weight?
Yeah. Say again, sorry, I missed that.
Do you feel you want to lose more weight?
Yeah, I mean, I do, but it's not for how I look. It's just so that I play better at football. I'm fitter, it's easier to run and stuff like that. Because my whole identity is that I just play football, which is a bit ridiculous, really, when people like try and think about what you are, and I'm like still convinced I'm going to be a professional footballer. I'm 35-year-old nearly.
Love it. You've got to have it.
35 years old, and he's the sub on our Sunday League team at the minute.
Yeah, the last sub to come on.
He is good at football. I'm not going to say he's not. But he does still have the aspiration in his head of being a footballer. Which
you got him.
It's all we talk about all day, every day, isn't it? Everything's focused towards playing football. It's a bit ridiculous, really. I think of it.
Yeah, I've soon realised what football means now. I had no idea the power of football. My God, the exposure. Yeah, I get it now. If
I just put the effort into something more positive, like, I don't know, career or business or something like that, I'd be so successful. But like, I can't just stop. The football thing's too important at the moment.
Sophie, I think you've touched upon something there which was really important, and it's something that's current in your life. I think now would be a good time that we're actually talking about football for you to talk about it, and then we can sort of continue with the rest of the episode, because I think what you've done is nothing short of incredible in supporting someone, and take as much time as you want to really tell the story. Don't feel like you have to rush that by any sense.
Yeah. Most importantly, full consent given from patient and loved ones. So the patient, I'm not going to say his name, but I will speak in detail. So I met this patient, I think I'm going to say from the top of my head maybe 78 days ago, and I say that because it's quite poignant to look when you're a nurse how long someone's been a patient, and the longest I've probably looked after someone is probably 6 to 8 weeks and things like that, and I think he's now at 90 something days, and to be in hospital that long is, that's quite a long time. I met this patient, it's quite poignant. I was one of his first nurses. He is the same age as my sister, so I found it really quite hard-hitting that someone was so critically ill and the same age as my sister. He also had friends and peers I went to school with, which I didn't know at the time. They came in to visit him, and it was a bit of a shell shock for me to see people I hadn't seen since school, and it made it all the more real. This patient has had a catastrophic event happen to him, and he's got something called locked-in syndrome. So again, I'm speaking in user-friendly language. This gentleman can't do anything at all. He uses his eyes to communicate. He was the person you'd see at work. He's a father. He's a husband. And he loves football. So football is the nucleus of this man. It is the mecca. It doesn't get any more important. I'm not going to say it's more important than his wife and children. However, I really
don't ask Dean that question.
She's in the room, so I'll not answer.
Cough, cough, wink, wink. I've got to understand the power of sports and the power of football. My father is football mad, but I've understood it at a much deeper level now. So yes, it is quite a harrowing case. So yes, I said to his wife, what can we do to motivate him? Because we've reached the capacity of medicine. With this gentleman, he will be locked in, and there's not more we can do on that front. So medically speaking, we've reached where we need to be. It is now rehabilitation and making the most of what we can do. So I said, this is now psychological. We need to meet this gentleman at a psychological level for motivation, and his medicine is now the mind. And how do I give him something back? So his wife, his wonderful wife, strongest woman I've ever met, had said, you know, his whole room is dedicated to football, his entire room. And one of the things he listens to all day, every day is talk sport, podcasts, all of the time. And him and his best mates sit around the bed. Whatever football's on. It's a priority. Everything to the sports. And I said, look, do you think, what can we do for his 40th that's coming up? And, you know, I think we both said in a jokey fashion, well, do you think we could get him to the football game? And I was like, oh, who's playing? In my novice ways. And she was like, I don't know. So I had a big Google. And it's the Newcastle Man City game, I believe. Is that correct? On the 28th of September? Yes. So I said, well, we can try. And then she was like, all right. So this was ages ago. And I thought, well, I can try. I've got some contacts. And then I just started pushing and asking and knocking on doors and seeing who I could speak to. And an amazing person stepped forward and said, and donated their box. And they said, it's yours. Here's 8 tickets. There's the box. It's yours for the full day. So that was a wonderful person called Steph Sloan and her husband George. And they went above and beyond to make this happen. And it's because of them. Also the public as well. Sharing, liking. I know this is controversial. I'm really sorry. But Sunderland FC did try and send me a message, and I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going to happen to me after me saying that. But other football teams got involved to support me with communications. So I want to thank, so scared. I want to thank other football teams. So we have got one more meeting tomorrow, and all being well, this gentleman will be going to the football on the 28th of September with Medic Crew in our base.
Perfect.
No, that's incredible. That is truly incredible. And I think that story probably does a few things. One, the power of passions, trying to use passions as motivation in life. I think that's a huge thing. But two, that community spirit of people pulling together to do great things for humans. You can do most things with a community of people trying and all pulling in the same direction.
A
lot
of men, it was men who stepped forward. And it was men, because obviously it is a male-dominated, sport. It was men who said, listen, Sophie, who I've never spoken to, was saying, I've spoken to this person, I've chatted to this person. And it was actually the men who were driving it to help me, to push me in the right directions and have these conversations. So it was, and you could tell it was truly for fanhood, for the community of fans of Newcastle.
Honestly, I love that so much. That is just incredible.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing. And to those people who donated their box and those tickets, that's just
forever in the debt. Forever.
Yeah, and what a game to go and watch as well. Newcastle Man City.
I know.
Hopefully get a result.
2 best teams in the country they're getting to watch. So
I know. We'll better win.
I hope so.
I think Eddie will have a plan.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Eddie will definitely have a plan. So I think from that would be really interesting now to discuss aesthetics. That is the topic of this episode, but it's also why you wanted to come on. It's also where probably the bigger debate lies within this conversation. Do you want to tell the audience a bit about what you do in aesthetic treatments?
Yeah.
We know nothing. I'm going to be honest. I know so little. I've reached out to, there's a group I'm in, and I got loads of comments on the group about different treatments and how it made them feel. And so I understand some of that stuff. But having never had any treatments or whatever myself, I am absolutely a man yet. I am a man who is open to having a conversation about it, and let's see where we go with it.
So with aesthetics, it's a very broad term, but aesthetic is just a word, an umbrella word we use because it's the easiest word to use. And a lot of people still don't understand what aesthetics is, and they'll go, what's that? So it is 2 categories. It's aesthetics as in aesthetically pleased, and that's where it comes from. That's its root name. But mainly, if people understood more, I would say injectables and facials. That's the 2 subcategories I would put it into. Okay. I'm getting an increasing amount of males that are coming to clinic, and a lot of them come with their wives. And they you can tell there's a sense of awkwardness, that I think the undercurrent is they might feel that their sexuality is being questioned. But they want to look good, they want to feel fresh, and I totally understand. So I can talk about that a bit more later. But in, again, basic terms, aesthetics is I do medical grade facials, and I'll break that down into 3. So I do something called microneedling, which we can talk about if you want, and I do hydromicrodermabrasion and chemical peels. Do a lot more, but they're the 3 main ones for facials. And then injectables is what you two might know as Botox. But it's actually illegal to say Botox. I don't know if you knew that. But Botox is the most known term. You actually have to say, so I'm using this as educational purposes. I'm not talking about Botox. But you have to say either wrinkle relaxing or anti-wrinkle. You can't actually say Botox. And the other one is what you might know as fillers or lip fillers. We would call it volume restoration. So cheek, chin, and lips is the most common. And then the third one is something called moisture boosters, putting hydration into the skin. And I've kept that as simple as I possibly could to get some understanding of what it is. But aesthetics is just a broad term.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. So I would say I'm aware of most of that. Dean, are you aware of most of that?
Yeah, I've heard of most of it, yeah.
Yeah, heard of most of that. So I'm going to jump straight into it. So I commented in this group, and there's men and women in that group, and there was about 90 comments in the group of various opinions of it. Yeah. And I did that in preparation for this. So some of the big things that came out were, it made me feel amazing. It's brought back my youth. Like
confidence.
I don't care what other people think. It's what I think. Does that stuff. Then there was the extreme. You look like you've got trout lips. I think comment what people were saying, like that sort of stuff. Then it was the waste of money. Then there was the idea that people generally get treatments because they are feeling really low and it helps them feel better. But then there was it was highlighted that there is a big risk in the industry that there's no entry level, there's not really an entry standard to come in and do some of these treatments. And there's a difference between professionals who are qualified properly, and then there's these 2-3 week courses of people who and there's a big sort of variance and gap between the standards, the health, safety of the two. Now, is that something within the sector? Because that was probably one of the most common comments, actually. Is that something that you, as a qualified professional, experience a lot from having to try to fix potentially some of those things and support people who've gone through that?
Yes and no. I think so the debate is discussed, and I personally think it's quite a judgmental word that is used in industry. It's divided into 2 sectors, and it is non-medic and medic. I don't personally use the term non-medic, because it does portray a sense that someone isn't qualified to do the job. Now, there is some absolutely outstanding practitioners who are not medics, i.e. they're not nurse nor doctor, etc. And they have some of the best treatments, and they are the elite. There is some medics who do the treatments and their standards are quite poor, their results are quite poor. I think this all comes down to how long you've done it, how many training things you've done, your practice. I think a lot of these courses, you are very right, and I'm happy you've brought this up. A lot of these courses are to blame for standards. The training academies, I've been to probably over 300 across the UK, Europe, and Ireland. And I'd say out of them, 2 to 3 of them met what I perceive as good quality, high standard academies. A lot of these academies are, we will make your dreams come true, £2,000, give it here, and then as soon as you do the training, it's bye-bye. There is a myth, and unfortunately a lot of people think, you do these they are 2-day courses, whether you're medic or non-medic. It's up to you to then put that into practice. And if that means working on models, so I use, again, might sound strange, but I use chicken breast, I use pork skin. So when I first started, I used to inject chicken breast, and then I used to work on pig skin. So I'd go to the butcher and get strips of pig skin. And it was the nearest thing I could use to human skin. And it's what a lot of surgeons do, etc., etc. So that's how I built my craft. But I've also got a lot of years in that industry. It's the providers of the training, unfortunately, that potentially produce poor students. The expectation is, Lewis, that you're going to make thousands of pounds. And it's very unfair, it's very cruel. It takes a long time to make a profit, and you're at it all of the time. It's not like that. It's a lot of rubbish. It takes a long time. But the first thing that a lot of training companies don't do, before you put your hand on a needle, you need to know basic first aid. And that's what that should just be standard. In the UK, we don't have that. The UK is the only one that would let my dad do Botox. So, it's quite obscure on that side of things. But I don't go with the medic, non-medic. I tend to use the terminology practitioner and medic.
Okay, that makes sense. So even me as a man have seen the programs with like botched surgeries and all those. Yeah, exactly. Like all those sorts of things. Yeah. What generally are the risks of going with someone who is non-practitioner? Or practitioner?
So anyone can do aesthetics, anyone can do filler, absolutely anyone. I think you have to have a level 3 in beauty, and that's the minimum qualification, which is fair play. You still cover your anatomy and physiology and beauty. So the risks are this. I think there's a big red flag if you go to a practitioner and if they don't talk about the risks involved with treatment. Now, the reason why a lot of practitioners, medic, non-medic, doesn't matter who you are, I'm talking about everyone here, a lot of them don't want to talk about the scary side. Why? Because they fear the client will not pay for the product. No. So the first thing I do in consultation, and I mean this if you know well, you'll do well, and if I provide you with well-being and knowledge, you can make the decision if you want this treatment or not. One of the scariest things in fillers is the scariest thing, and anyone will vouch that fillers are petrifying. The reason being, you can have something called a vascular occlusion. It's a medical emergency. You're against the clock, and you need to act on that, and it's petrifying. It's absolutely petrifying when it happens, okay? You're by yourself, you're not in a hospital, it's just you and the client. The risk of that happening is small, but what you want to discuss with your client is there is a risk that if I do this treatment, this can happen. So it comes down to taking the health form, going through the risks, etc., etc. If your practitioner isn't talking about risks, that's your red flag.
Okay. And in terms of why people generally have it, so in preparation for this episode, I read a lot about a big reason was I think body dysmorphia came up quite a lot. Why people generally aren't happy with themselves.
Yes.
And they look in the mirror and they want to change something.
Yeah.
Is that something that you generally experience, that people generally aren't happy with something and they go, I want to change it?
So I would say as a medical practitioner, I think a lot of clients are probably a little bit apprehensive of how thorough I am. So I think I might scare people, and I don't mean to, but I do. So I am very vigilant and I'm very on it with signs and symptoms of body dysmorphia. I've told several clients that this needle is not going to rectify what's going on upstairs. And I've said, come back to me when you've invested in some therapy because I know you're struggling here. That's not to say you can't have filler. That's not to say you can't have Botox. But the way you've just presented yourself is red flag. And I'm not feeling overly confident that you are dealing well with yourself and how you see yourself. Because
what does that mean? Like, what does that mean? So if we were to take it away from, like, you obviously clearly have a process, which is great, and that's great for your business. If we make this like a general sense and we talk about body dysmorphia, like, how would you recognize someone potentially having body dysmorphia? Like, what are the signs that you would look at?
Yeah, mainly if someone says, I absolutely just hate my face, like, look at the state of my face, I'm effing ugly, like, look at my face, like, look at my chin, Sophie, look at my chin, would you leave the house with that chin? I wouldn't leave the house with that chin. So
like it's extreme behavior and extreme opinion,
I'm not
self-opinion.
doing this, and I hate my face, and I hate my body, and it's just, it's that barrage of abuse. So it's not, God, these wrinkles, they've just come from, it's not just a light chat, it can be, I'm not going to work. I'm literally not going to work. And it's that type of energy. It affects marriages, it affects relationships, it affects jobs. I have a duty of care before I put a needle in.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Christian has actually asked the question, and you've met Christian, the producer. So how many people get addicted? You're not going to know how many people, but in your experience, how many people get addicted to the idea of trying to change the image, and how do professionals balance the income that would bring to the business versus identifying someone who has an addiction? That's a really good point.
Really good question. I'll be very open and honest. I wouldn't be able to classify addiction. I wouldn't be able to medically say this person is addicted. It's not in my classification of studies in nursing. I can recognize signs of someone booking in every month and saying, I want another meal, I want another meal, I want another meal. I've had that before, and I said, we're not doing this anymore. We have to respectfully stop. So I've recognized when I believe enough is enough. I work on something called golden ratio. It's a structural measurement we use. You use it in engineering. You might have heard of it before. It's used in the pyramids and everything like that. It's used in classical art. It's called the golden ratio. So you're trained, I was trained in golden ratio. So you work within the perimeters of what is deemed appropriate and aesthetically pleasing. Okay.
So if someone came to you, for example, because this was another thing that was brought up in the group around some people, when they were talking about the extreme cases, they were saying it just looks like some people have too much work done. Now, is there generally a best practice? So maybe this is the golden ratio of looking at someone and saying, no, I think you've probably already had too much work done almost. And is there that like consultation piece of you need to step back a little bit, or I don't know what that would look like?
It comes with tactful language. It comes with the finesse of language. You have to be very mindful that you could cause great offense to a patient, because, what is beautiful? What is the classification of beauty? What is the classification of natural? What you might perceive as utterly beautiful could be grotesque to someone else. You must also take into consideration, and I'm using females, and I hope you don't mind me using this, we're under a lot of pressure to go with trends, and trends grip you. Using the example, having the biggest bum, it's disease.
Yeah, is that BBL? I learned that in my research.
The deadliest treatment to have, you can get something called fat embolism, and women are just going in their masses to Turkey, and they're dying. They're actively dying. British women are just casually dying all of the time. You just have to look on the newspaper. Sorry, I digress a little bit. I'm just trying to talk.
No, it's okay.
I think it comes. Yes, there is a limit where you say enough is enough, but I would definitely say practitioners potentially might abuse that, because it's £200 at the end of the day for 10 minutes of work. And there is practitioners out there that will do work that is perceived to be highly inappropriate. But I can't.
Yeah, I think that's a really hard one, isn't it? Because if you're driven by self-interest to make money, there's someone who you can naturally just make money off all of the time, and you can. The fear is then that potentially you could, not you, the person who is abusing that power essentially, could abuse that power, because if someone's addicted to the treatment because they have body dysmorphia, they're vulnerable, exactly, and then you have the power to manipulate that by saying, we could do more filler, but actually we could do more lips and we could do more whatever.
What about this? What about that?
And that person,
it's like any addiction. It's like any alcohol. It's like any drug. You get that hit of satisfaction, and that person who wants to feed you. Let's talk about drug dealers. They're not bothered that you're going to lose your house. They're not bothered about that.
No,
they'll give you a gram of coke. And I'm just talking in general sense of life. This is life. You can take drugs. And it's the same. If you're going to get a hit, that you get your lips done and you get that rush of feeling lush, and it's what, 160 quid? Some practitioners might go, they wanted it. There was no health risk involved. It was just aesthetically not pleasing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also there's not the health. Yeah, but there's not the health. But then the challenge is then there's not the barrier to enter it. Like you say, if you don't really need to have much more than a few entry things to do it, the challenge there is that people could find themselves, when I think from a mental health perspective, they can find themselves very quickly in an addiction cycle over something that our image means so much to us as people. It's who the world sees, and it takes a lot of growth individually to really truly not give a shit what anyone thinks about what you look like. Like most people do, especially in this visual world where everything's social media driven, and everything's sex sells. Like I work in marketing. I don't work in that type of marketing.
No, I know what you mean.
I work in marketing, and so many campaigns are driven by sex. And even when you look back and think of the Coke advert where the man's doing the lawnmower with his top off. That's a huge one. And how many adverts have women in barely nothing? So our image is so important to us. And I think I've learned from research for this, and even in what you were saying before, the dangers and risks of once someone is on that journey of getting aesthetics, if they don't have a really fair, honest, professional practitioner, then they're potentially putting themselves on a loop of chasing dopamine, whatever. And it naturally will head down a worse direction, especially if you already are struggling with something like body dysmorphia, because then it might declare
that they'll just think it's normal.
No, of course they won't. Of course they won't. But we all have elements of it, and I think it was something that I was trying to allude to before with Dean's, like with his weight loss battle. So he's saying that he doesn't care how he looks. That's fine, and he doesn't actually. I can hand on heart say he doesn't care at all. Where me, like I can say one thing. Like obviously, I'm a bald man. I have to shave my head, and I remember when my hair was thinning, thinking, "Oh shit, like this is my hair's." It definitely wasn't the best thing in the world.
Really
of course it is. Of course it is. And it's one of those. And Christian, he will hate me saying it because he struggled with it a lot more than me. But Christian had to shave his hair off as well. And it's one of those where, without the right guidance and support and having honest conversations like this, people probably feel like they're going to go with the cheapest option or the quickest fix to get the help that they need versus something that will truly help them with how they're really feeling.
And a lot of people do this to attract the other sex. Do you know what I mean? They try to create this beautification, whatever you perceive as beauty. It is often, we are biologically designed to be with someone, whoever that person may be. And you often find it comes from a place of insecurity in self, and also because they potentially want to impress or feel sexy or feel, which is all okay. I think that's okay to want to feel sexy. And it's normally to their partner. And they get this and they get this. There's the other scope of it where I don't know if this is appropriate to talk in this podcast or to talk about, but menopause is catastrophic for women and still massively under-talked, and it transforms a woman's skin. So that's not looking at aesthetic says, oh, I want to be beautiful for my husband or my wife or whatever that may be. Overnight, women lose 40% of their collagen, and that estrogen drops, and a massive hormonal effect happens on their body. And they say, I don't even look like me anymore. I've lost my identity through a massive hormonal change. That's still not talked about. But
No, I think that's really true. Christian just said something there actually, and he flashed a comment up about himself. And it's probably along to that point. So he's saying to this day, he feels about going to Turkey, hair transplant, or getting a hairline micropigment tattoo. It's so hard to accept things you don't feel comfortable about yourself. And I think that's really true. And it was a big reason why I wanted to do this episode, because we all have these doubts. But how many people will openly sit there and go, by the way, I actually feel shit about the way I look, because especially when you say about attracting another partner or someone to be attracted to you, there's almost, you have to be, I'm so confident, I love the way I look for you to find me attractive, because there's something quite unattractive about someone who goes around saying, I'm unattractive.
Yes, because I think sometimes confidence is sexy, and I've dated men with no hair, I've dated men that are bald, and I've dated overweight men, and they've actually been ironically more confident than a full head of hair and someone who's not in the gym 5 days a week. So confidence is also sexy and very attractive. I also think you've just got to find a healthy balance. It is okay if you want to do some aesthetic improvements, as long as your people around you are supportive and you're not blurring that lines of you're actually hating yourself. You just want to improve, because you could also argue going to the gym. Some people go to the gym every day, and some people could argue, oh God, are you just trying to aesthetically make your body look amazing? Well, no, there's a lot more to that, health and lifestyle. Some people do it to look incredible, and that's also a form of aesthetics, you could potentially say. So yes,
I think you have hit a point about the partner, trying to attract the partner, because whilst I say now I'm not bothered, I've been married 5 years, I've been with my wife nearly 8, and that's all I can sort of remember. So right now I haven't been too bothered, but when I was single, I was different. Like I got fat during COVID, but that definitely makes a good point.
The men that I've I'm sorry, carry on.
No, go on.
I was going to say the men that I've had in clinic, a lot of them have said, I feel like me and my wife have just got a bit distant, and we'll have a bit, we'll have a bit camaraderie, and we'll have a bit chat, and they felt very safe. I think it fills the guards up. They feel I'm a macho man, which is totally fine. And I'm very respectful of where they are within their manhood, not trying to make sure I encapsulate all of the masculinity. But once we get to the bit of the softer area of conversation, it is a bit like, I just feel owled. And I laugh and I go, what do you mean? They go, I just feel owled and crap. And it's sometimes a facial, like, I feel it. And it just brings a bit of avaboom back to them.
Yeah, no, I think that's really true. It's something where, for me, when I'm going to bring it back to Dean actually for 2 seconds there. You say you don't care about it, but does Azusa care about it?
Well, Azusa's getting win-win anyways, isn't she? Because I'm like on this health kick for football, so like I'm getting skinnier and I'm getting better as I'm going on. If anything, I'm probably the best I've been in a long time. So yeah, she's buzzing. I don't think she's really bothered though. I think she just loves us for me, to be honest.
Absolutely.
We hope.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, no, I think that's really true. If she came on here, she would be the star of the show. Like, it's not even a thing. Like, she's unreal. But yeah, so another topic that came up, Sophie, was the age in which people should start getting treatment. I'm not sure on your opinion on that. I'm sure there's legal age, and then there's maybe an more ethical age, and your views on that.
Yeah, and this is a very sensitive topic, Lewis, because I think a lot of people will always say you're too young, and that yes, there is elements where you ethically and morally have to say absolutely not. I think yes, legally 18. If there was a medical reason, so there's something called hyperhidrosis, when you can't stop sweating and you're perspiring at a medical rate, you just can't, and it's on the hands, it's on the feet, then that's a medical override of age. You think, yes, they're 18, but they have hyperhidrosis confirmed. So I do I'm going to say Botox now because I'm using that brand, but I would use Botox on the hands and on their feet. That's the predominance of that. I do a lot of acne. So you do find the younger generation and the older, actually, I don't know why I've just said that, but I would say my younger clients, it's a predominance of acne management. In talking about anti-wrinkle treatment, it's a frustrating one because you have genetics involved. So someone might not be biologically and chronologically old, so say, let's take a 21-year-old. Some people could potentially be horrified that they were considering getting anti-wrinkle. And I understand chronologically it sounds grossly inappropriate. But if mum or dad, if they carry a gene or a genetic that makes them more aged or carry more lines and wrinkles prematurely, then there is a concept of thinking these will only get heavier. Now, you must take into the concept prevention is better than cure. If you leave it longer and longer and longer, it's harder to treat. So I sometimes get clients where they say, I want you to treat this. And I have to say, I think we're going to get maybe 50% in terms of your results, because sometimes the lines and wrinkles are so embedded and you need to use some other techniques. Morally and ethically, you work first. You see what's appropriate. If there's a medical history, etc., etc. So it is a sensitive subject, but you act with tact and medical decorum, and you work. Consultation is key. It's consultation all day long. So yes, if there is a medical influence, mum or dad carrying it, then I would probably act on a younger age. Or if I'd said, this is only going to get more embedded and it's going to be harder to treat down the line. But 18 technically is legally when you can do treatments. But I've never done anti-wrinkle on anyone 25 and below. Loads of facials, though. Loads of facials.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. I think I have a question for Dean. Dean, is there, and I think you'll answer this honestly, is there any treatments that Sophie's mentioned tonight that you think you would get?
Not at the minute. I've done, just coming back to the stuff. I'm pretty open and honest and talk about stuff. There was a time when I jumped into the steroids world years ago, which, looking back now, was so stupid. I don't know why you just think it's going to be a good idea. Your friend's doing it, and then you jump on them. And I ended up starting them. And I've got a friend who's a bit similar. I always starts them and then just stops going to the gym and stuff like that. So I think us as a society sometimes will look to these short-term fixes. But yeah, I must have only been when I did them 21, 22. I'm still growing and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't think I would do any other and any other treatments. But it's early, isn't it? Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I only just literally thought about it a couple of seconds ago. I sort of forgot I'd even ever done it.
Yeah, and steroids has long-term effects in terms of cardiovascular health, in terms of fertility and things like that. I'm not talking about yourself. I'm just talking in general. No. I don't want to scare you.
But yeah, might be relevant, but
I think
it's very relevant.
Yeah, it is. Thank you for saying that, because that's really a really important point.
Yeah.
What about you, Lou? What you fancying?
Do you know what's for me? It was I'm very much aware that I'm getting older, and I think it's something that as you get older, I look at pictures now when I'm 31 versus when I was 19, and you're like, God, you don't actually look at yourself as that in your mind's eye. None of us are our age, are we? We all still think that we're 18. We all still think we're 18, and it's trying to get that balance between accepting who I am today, and then understanding, should I be doing more things proactively to be happy with who I am today? And I think that's a bit of a battle. But me, Dean, and another one of our mates have just started a fitness challenge, actually, just 94 days, going to get in the best shape we possibly can pre-Christmas.
Amazing.
But we constantly have these moments of life's not quite what we want it to be. We're going to do something really fucking extreme to try and change it. But yeah, a lot of it comes from not happy.
To do that. That's amazing.
Yeah, Lou's cheated, but yeah, we'll not get into that.
Can you tell the story then? How you think? Go on then.
Yeah, because originally it was going to be me and another friend, and then Lou was like, "No, I'm heavier than you, anyways." So yesterday I got weighed, and he was like, "See, I'm half a stone heavier." And then this morning, miraculously, when we started, he's lost half a stone, which is surely coincidental, Lewis.
4 pounds. I've lost 4 pounds from running last night. and training this morning, and I'd fasted. So,
Right, I'll forgive you.
What would you both say if there was a medicine that slowed down time? What would you do about that? How would you both feel
take
about
it in a
that?
heartbeat.
Oh, aye.
Take it in a heartbeat.
So that's where we're going with aesthetics. There is age longevity.
Yeah. Aesthetically, yeah.
Yeah. So it's called NAD. And you either take a capsule or you inject it, and this is now the future of anti-aging medicine. And one of the professors, she's an anti-aging professor from Newcastle, which I'm very proud to say. She's called Dr. Nicola Colin.
Have you seen Sophie, the guy that's trying to like reverse his aging, and he's trying to like live as long as possible?
Yeah.
Have you seen him do?
So it's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, really good.
So is that so? When you say that, so Sophie, we spoke about this before the podcast. So you've told me that this is something that's over in America and it's starting in Hollywood, and it's something that is potentially going to come over here. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that? It's here now.
So again, I'm by no means any expert, but I'm very interested in it. So I don't know if you watch the Kardashians, lads, but it's very talked about on the Kardashian. I don't know if you judge about it. But they'll always say like NAD, and they talk about how they'll always inject NAD. So all of your big stars have been on this for years. Now it's coming to the market where we have accessibility to it. So all in Hollywood, they'd just be doing it on a coffee break. So it came to London, as most things do, and it basically slows the cells down in your body. So this is the new form of anti-aging medicine. So what we perceive as anti-aging medicine is fillers and Botox. But this is now internally slowing your aging down, your biological, chronological age down. And what it's known in broad terms is NAD. So some people take tablets every single day. You can inject it if you want to do it at home, or you can get myself to give you a drip, and I drip it into your arm. Very, very expensive. But this is the new, this is the future, this is the Tesla of the blood world, or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, NAD. No one's really doing it in the body, but it's coming.
Did they do the Ozempic and the other like fat ones as well?
Yeah, so the Ozempic, again, you have to, because I'm medical, I'd have to go through all the forms and make sure you hit the BMI and have the credentials. But again, talking about the dark underbelly, you could, go to Quick Fit, and there could be someone that could be selling it in there. I don't want to disrespect Quick Fit, I just chose to So there is a very dark underbelly of aesthetics. I don't know if you know, but anyone can sell anything. It's from the black market. These things cause stroke, they cause heart disease, they can be paralyzing agents, like anything. Unfortunately, no regulation. Absolutely no regulation. So all the treatments I use go through a pharmacy, go through a doctor. So that's why my treatments are quite expensive. They're not really expensive because a doctor oversees it. But unfortunately, there's a very, very, very seedy dark. You can meet someone in Manchester, I don't know, airport, and they'll just have a backpack on, and you can get anything. You can get anything, and they'll just be a random person, and you just need the contacts.
Do you think with, you were saying about this NAD coming, and obviously I've watched podcasts which are saying in a few years, people who don't want to be fat are just going to basically be able to take tablets or what have you. Where do you think the aesthetics world's going? Like, what in 20 years, what do you think we'll have?
I think, with Ozempic comes its own risks. I think a lot of people are using Ozempic. It's extremely expensive, but it's accessible to all. You just have to figure out your weight. You can get it anywhere online on Superdrug. You can just put in your weight that you're 32 stone, whatever that may be. Anybody can get accessibility to this drug. I think that's going to lead to a whole host of complications in terms of your insulin, your pancreas. Again, I'm not knowledgeable enough to know this, but I feel that's where we're going. But I do think the world is going towards longevity. And to be, I want to live as long as possible to have children and look after my parents, etc. But I think we are going to a futuristic world in the sense of how long can we live? Everyone's super skinny and like 400-year-old. So if you talk about your partner, she's Japanese. If you go to any of these countries, their longevity is absolutely exceptional. career, and they just live and live and live and live, and their diet is absolutely amazing. Our Western diet is horrendous, absolutely graphic, and that's why we're mingers. But
I think, as you said, grandparents are in their late 90s. And the first time I met her nana, she said, "Why is he so fat so soon?" She couldn't believe it. And then we went for food, and she was we went for food, and she was like, "He'll have the double rice." I was like, no, I'll have the single. And then afterwards, I wish I had the double.
But I love the diet is everything, isn't it? And
brilliant.
And all of the skincare culture comes from there. It's all the leaders in the market. Britain, and we're very behind. We're always the last ones to know. We're always Eastern European countries. They know everything. They laugh at our aesthetics. So like we were doing that 50 years ago. I'm like, sorry.
Living in the past.
Yeah, we are.
Do you know what? There was lots of interesting parts about that, but the one that stuck with me, because Christian's put a comment in the chat saying that he loves the Kardashians.
Oh, thank you.
So,
I don't want to say thank you. Sorry, I just went like, yay.
He does love them, but there's this comment that he's put first. But we'll read this one and then we'll get into the Kardashian conversation, because I do think it's very interesting. So Christian has said, "I think that Sophie and people like her do to help." I can't even read that. It doesn't even make sense. I think he means to say people like you.
It makes sense.
What you do to help people who are really struggling with image issue and help their mental health and make them feel good about themselves is incredible. And he thinks his biggest takeaway from it is finding someone as professional and as honest as Sophie.
Oh, Christine, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate it.
You little charmer, eh?
Lovely.
Yeah, let's go into the Kardashian conversation, because I find it really interesting. And I do have an opinion on the Kardashians, I have to be honest. I'm not a fan of the Kardashians. So,
no,
yeah. So,
don't worry, go for it.
Yeah, Christian says he is a fan of the Kardashians, and maybe some people are. Maybe they're a fan of the life that they live. But I really struggle with the fact that they have created this beautiful image, a false beautiful image that isn't real.
Yes.
And is something that has set standards in young girls, especially, to achieve something that isn't possible. And I think celebrity culture does that generally, because if you look at even Cristiano Ronaldo's transformation, David Beckham's transformation, from what they looked like at 20 to what they look like now with money, they've had their teeth done, they clearly have great skincare routine. Beckham's had a hair transplant. Then there's the Kardashians. It looks like they've had a body transplant, face transplant, all those sorts of things. Yeah, exactly. And I suppose I'd be interested in your opinion on the Kardashians.
Yeah.
We'll go into that first. You've just said you don't like them, which is great. And then secondly, for us to discuss how we can possibly educate young people in the best way to be accepting of who they are. So they go through life not feeling like they aren't good enough. Yeah.
I think the Kardashians are great entertainment, first and foremost. I think they offer silly entertainment. I've been in and out of therapy since I was 13. I'm quite open about that, and for varied reasons. And I was very lucky at a young age to be a therapist. And her first rule of thumb when I think I was 16 when I had this conversation, she said, don't buy any magazines, don't read these magazines, do not watch reality shows, and do not look at your celebrities. And she said, because it will poison your mind, it will poison your soul, and it will poison your exterior. And I didn't understand that till later years. I now understand what she was saying. I don't watch Love Island, I don't watch reality shows. I find great programs of history and animals and things like that, because unfortunately, unless I think you are of strong mindset to switch off, I think you are guaranteed to go down the rabbit hole of self-destruction and thinking you are not good enough. And you feel your job's crap, your life's crap. I think it is very dangerous territory. The Kardashians are phenomenal for entertainment if you feel comfortable in oneself. But But I do think they should be more on it with saying, I've had everything done. I've had this done, I've had this done. Girls, this is not natural. And I think that would create a sense of safety with watching it. But I can't watch those shows because what you're saying is I don't feel good enough. They make me feel so repulsed in myself, so I don't watch them. And I just stay well away from them. As is Love Island, beautiful women, I feel uncomfortable in my own self. And that's just my personal opinion. And it just keeps my mind in a safe space.
Yeah. What's your views on this? This is taking away from your profession for a moment. This is Sophie, personal opinion, absolutely. What's your views on societal pressures on particularly young people around that like body image piece? Because I've been young, in really good shape, and now at 31, it's just not possible to maintain having like an 8-pack and like training all the time because you have like life, and life is real. That isn't real.
Very real. Very real.
That's like the Instagram life, right? And where lots of things are photoshopped and edited. What do you feel, or why do you feel like that is? You work in a beauty industry to a degree.
I think youth has a big part to play. I don't think we've got a lot of resilience with youth. I think your brain is still developing. The frontal part of the brain is still doesn't know where it is. And this is, again, it sounds disrespectful when I say men do develop differently to women. I think obviously your environment is absolutely imperative. It's nature versus nurture. So who's been your pillars when you've been growing up? Who's been your mentors? Who's been your leading hosts? Who have been the people that you see as celebrities, whether they be your neighbour or your best friend? I think when you're young, you do go through those things. It's life. You go through those things thinking, "Are my boobs big enough? Is my manhood big enough?" You go through those things because that's sometimes a bit of crap when you just haven't. You watch movies, you're influenced by that, you're influenced by siblings, but you tend to sort of not. I do want to say grow out of it, because what happens is you wake up with life. So example being, my dad has a serious health condition, and that very quickly told me to grow up, and life is going to hit you at 100 miles an hour, and you're going to have to really find some gusto to keep going. And if you look shit, then so be it, because tomorrow you might not be here. So tough tits if you look banging. But I appreciate not everyone has those things in life. I think it's absolutely imperative, if you have little ones, to the best of your abilities, to try to keep them in a safe zone. But it's not as easy as like having children. They can just get on the internet whenever they want. I think it's important that they see the rawness of the world and have those insecurities, because you need to build your foundation of security. Nothing's perfect, absolutely not. I do think we've got a lot better. Don't get me wrong, anyone can get surgery, but I now don't see the magazines that I used to see growing up in the 90s about women having to lose 10 pounds in 24 hours. I don't see that anymore. I see women who do have stretch marks, who do have areas of the body that aren't classified as perfection. And I do feel the more that we see that, the more that men also understand that women come in various shapes and sizes. Speaking from a female point of view, I think I've done this for years to shrink myself, because I thought that was desired as beauty. And over years, I've felt a lot more comfortable in my skin. And it's portrayed in partners that it's not my body size, it was my attitude that they found more attractive in my body.
Yeah, that's really interesting. The fact that you're never happy with yourself, not you generally, we'll talk about all of us here. If you're not truly happy within yourself, then how are you going to potentially find someone else be happy with you? Because you're not actually being yourself. You're always trying to be someone else, aren't you?
It radiates out to them. It pushes out onto them, and they think, good God, they don't want to take that on either. They just want to feel comfortable. But I do think a mild sense of, not insecure, it's a totally incorrect term, but it's good to want to stay healthy as well. And I'm not talking about injectables and things. I think it's really important that we do see fitness as not just looking good, as a medicine for your future.
Yeah, for longevity purposes as well.
Having an SPF on every day is going to protect your skin and have substance in your skin to protect your skin.
Yeah. I'm conscious Dean's about to leave in 4 minutes because he is going to go and play football.
No problem.
I'm staying on, so don't worry, Sophie. You're not holding the Everyman podcast by yourself. It's so, Dean. In terms of what we've just discussed there, just around the health part, is it something that you're very much aware of as you're getting older, of trying to look after your health? Do you
I think that
constantly think about that?
I do now. I do a little bit, especially with like this whole self-help culture that we have now, where everyone's listening to podcasts and they want to better themselves, and you're listening to ones which are talking about longevity and stuff like that. So, as Sophie said before, we all want to live longer, don't we? So that there's bits of me when I go for a run when I don't want to go for a run, which does think, this is good for us in the long run. And eventually, you've got to keep it up. See, my missus is stick thin, nothing on her at all, but she doesn't do anything. She goes for walks, she doesn't run, she doesn't go to the gym, she doesn't lift anything. Say again, sorry.
She genetically.
Yeah, but yeah, Asian, so she's 5 foot tall and stick thin. Yeah. At one point, I was nearly three times her weight. So yeah, it just stuck with us through that. So yeah, I guess she's a keeper. But yeah, so I mean, it is something, especially as you start to think about having kids and stuff like that. And especially now I'm like 35, you want that longevity, don't you? So it's definitely something that I've started to think about as I've got older. Before, I just you don't care. You feel invincible when you're young, don't you? You think you're never going to die. Yeah. But yeah.
No, that's really interesting. Sophie, so I suppose to you, how do you look after your health? Like when you think about health and both mental, physical, what sort of things do you do, and how conscious are you of your health?
I'm probably the worst for it. I preach it a lot, I'll be totally honest. And I'm like, oh yeah, you should do this. But there's a classic scene in our industry where hairdressers say, oh, I've got the worst hair, and I'm a hairdresser, etc. I have wanted to, I've done a lot of strength training recently because of my dad's health. There's been a time when my dad was really unwell and I couldn't pick him up and I couldn't move him. And your adrenaline kicks in, and I had to drag him for want for a better term, and to get him into the car, to get him to A&E, and I wanted to become strong for him, and to be stronger in that sense, and to be able to just have a bit more health and well-being, so when emergency comes, that I can have that strength, not like superhuman, but try and replicate that in some way.
Yeah.
I am a nurse. We work very long hours. We do have poor pay, and my aesthetic business is the thing that keeps me being able to actually pay for my bills. Being a nurse is absolutely phenomenal, but it does have a massive impact on your health and well-being, psychologically and physically. I'm given the best training, but we have I don't really know much about nursing pay. It's very low, very poor. And the aesthetic business is actually what keeps me being able to enjoy life, which is quite sad, but here we are. Health and well-being wise, I try to eat as well as I can. I do predominantly eat a vegetarian diet. I go to the gym 3 times a week. I would say I'm average, but I do get a lot of treatments on my face.
Do you self-do them, or do you do them, get them from other people? Do you self-do them or get them from other people?
So I do all my own facials. I can do them quite quickly. But my other nurse does my injections. So I am more on the anti-aging side of things. So I don't really do anything from a filler point of view. Fillers are the ones that change your face. So cheeks and chin, jawline, they're more like your restoration work, let's just say. I'm a big supporter in something called polynucleotides. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's salmon sperm.
Whatever you're into, Soph.
It's also trapped. And that's another anti-aging medicine. It slows the aging down in your cells. It's called polynucleotides. So it is salmon sperm.
I was going to say I'm going to try that one with my missus tonight.
Aye, straight after football.
And on that note,
yeah, you can go stream off that one, mate.
Yeah, see you later. Thanks, Sophie. Really interesting.
Lovely to meet
Have a nice day.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Trying to get Toppy on this chair.
I think this is Christian.
Hello. It's like a transfer, isn't it?
Is this another person?
It's like a little transfer window deadline.
Hello. Is that football terminology?
It is.
Yeah, it was a little bit. I'm not grateful.
Do you have some called an accumulator?
Accumulator? Is that what you're trying to say? I'll take that.
Accumulator.
It was close enough. It was close enough.
Squillerator. And I was
Squillerator.
I was like, oh, are you doing the squillerator? And everyone thought it was a Pokemon creature.
I used to love Pokemon. So did Christian. Like we were obsessed.
I'm a weirdo. Not gonna lie.
I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, I was obsessed. Christian, probably same question to you, mate. So the
Go on,
health
then.
question around how health conscious are you now, and what do you do to look after your health, both mental and physical?
I think it's a hard one to ask me though, because it's kind of like, well, I know I've spoken about it a little bit. I'll speak about it a little bit more without too much detail. My major anxiety and mental health problem is health anxiety. I am the biggest hypochondriac in the entire world. I diagnose everything, just everything. I diagnose myself every other week. I'm dying of something in some way, shape, or form, and that's not even a joke, by the way. That's genuinely true.
I'm smiling because I've known Christian for 6 years, and it's so true.
It is, honestly, it's so true. And I suppose I've always been health conscious in the fact of that I've always worried about those types of things.
And
you are a worrier.
Worried though, and went to someone, because I would be so concerned that you weren't worried and didn't explore, because a lot of people leave it too late. But I appreciate
definitely. I think that's one thing that, especially the whole reason that we want to do this, is to try and get people to understand where they are in life and that they're not alone and that it's okay to reach out to people. I think that's kind of why I'm so open to speak about it. And I know Lewis is and a lot of us. But from that health side of it, I've always been that conscious. But talking about the aesthetic side of it and like my personal looks and stuff like that, I mean, Lou did drop us in a little bit earlier by saying about us being bald and stuff like that. And obviously overweightness as well for myself. I mean, I'm going to say I am affected by it loads. I'm the opposite of Dino. Dino could not care less. I'm the complete opposite. Like, it really, really gets to me. Like, as I was saying in the comment, I'm the type of person that thinks genuinely 2 or 3 times a week about booking a Turkey trip and going and get my hair done. And that's why I see...
Why Turkey? Is it just because of its...
Oh, no, that was just yeah, that was just I think it's a term, isn't it, with most stuff like that? Like, turkey teeth, turkey hair, you know, like...
Do you think it's a lot cheaper? It does seem a lot cheaper.
But I feel as though it has more... See, I don't think I would actually go to Turkey because, obviously, with my health anxiety, I think they would do, like, a proper botch job. Like, if I was going to ever get something done, I would want it done in, like, a proper professional, like, clean environment.
And would you ever have the toupees where they're glued on?
Do you know what's funny? Someone mentioned it in the comments that I did actually have a little look at it. I don't know, because it seems really good and I would love the idea of it, but I just don't know how I would pass, like, one day just being completely bald and then the next day just all of a sudden rocking up to work with, like, a full head of hair.
Yeah.
Like, I feel as though people would know.
Micropigmentation where they do, like, the
I think that's the closest I've ever been. The closest I've ever been to genuinely having it done was getting a micropigment. But there's some brutal ones. There's some brutal
artists. Oh my god, they're really
but I think like any tattoo, it fades over time. That's the fear, isn't it?
So, but like, I don't care if you get 10 years out of it though, Lou. Like, if you get 10 years out of it.
I've had my brows tattooed like twice and you just get them chopped up.
It just scares me a lot.
Everything comes to maintenance.
And that's why I was saying, it's like, for me, the aesthetic side of it, what everyone trying to change their image, I know we've spoke quite negatively on like the effects of how it can negatively impact people's lives. But I feel like there's quite a positive side of it as well. I feel like there's a lot of people who do really, really struggle mentally with the idea of that they hate their body image, they hate the way they look. And I feel like getting those little things done that can make them feel really different about themselves. Like, I can picture myself walking out of somewhere like with a full head of hair, like the toupee plate thing before the hair replacement thing, and feeling really good. Like looking in the mirror, being like, I actually feel content now that I've got it back, because I think I would get that satisfaction from it. And I suppose that side of it, I really think does help a lot of people. It's just finding the right people. I think that's the problem. And what Lou said at the start with professionals versus botch jobs, it's how do you find the right people? And I think that's what's good about having you on, is because what you said earlier about the whole, look, I would sit down and say, like, this is the repercussions of getting it done. This is the risks. Like, there will be a lot of people who won't do that, but maybe people wouldn't have known that's not normal. Do you know what I mean? Whereas seeing this
in every industry.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And Christian, what you were saying there, to be fair, is so true based on my experience of knowing you. So when we first met, Sophie, Christian, it's fair to say, mate, you were clinging on to your hair, right?
Oh God! Right. Let's not go too much into it.
No, let's just talk
I'll
about
say
it.
clinging on to the hair. We'll say clinging on to hair.
Are you still hanging on there?
I like to call it the rhino. I had what was called the rhino. It was a singular. Well, just imagine Alan Shearer if he just grew out the one spike at the top. You know, it was like that, and then the back was just pushed forward to try and hide the middle, the island in the middle. Yeah.
But I have to be honest.
Clinged on.
You shaved it off. So I had a shaved head when we first met, and I said to you straight away, like, you looked so much better shaving it off. And I think it comes down to what Sophie was saying before around when you own it and you're confident with who you are, how you feel, how you look, all those sorts of things. You are more attractive. You have a different aura about you as a person, saying like, no, this is me. I'm not trying to hide anything. Like, it's just me. Take it or leave it. And I think there's some real strength in that.
Got any hair anymore? I don't.
No. That's our age.
Sophie,
that's our age. That's our age. We're not 20 anymore.
I don't know anyone with hair. I think I know one.
One person.
One in the whole of the United Kingdom.
The whole world was one, and that is Dean.
Yes, Dean.
And he does nothing with it.
I know.
No, he doesn't.
This is what happens with what we're doing now.
Yeah, it's such a waste. So Sophie, there was another part we spoke about before, and I don't know if you want to talk about it or not. I'm hoping you remember what it is.
Oh my God.
I feel like she definitely doesn't remember what it is.
Was it long chicken? No.
Begins with F, and you might be freezing.
Oh no, about freezing my eggs. Sorry.
There we go.
We'll just throw that in amongst the turkey baldness.
There we go.
Just that very kind of you to think sensitive.
I'm assuming we're not talking about like eggs that go into a box. No.
We're not talking about fried eggs. We're not.
Not omelets. These are the ovaries, etc. But yes, I didn't know where we'd go with the podcast. Now I think I was just bombarding Lewis with like all my conversations. But I mean, in the future, if we ever talk about women's health and men's health, it would be a good topic to talk about in terms of menopause and how much men know about the menopause. But it might be too long to talk about tonight. But yes, it was just to coincide with longevity. Like next year, I'll be going on a journey to get my eggs frozen because I am going to be 35 and I'm not ready to have a family yet. I'm single. I'm not bothered about being single. It doesn't bother me in the slightest doing it alone. I don't have any thought process of even thinking, oh God, I'm going to be alone. I don't know if that's because my job's so intense. I think, oh, having a baby, I'll be absolutely fine, but whatever. So yes, I'll start the journey next year in London to freeze my eggs, keep them lovely, and then maybe have a baby in the next 3 to 4 years. So yes, that's the next process of my life.
So is that something, when you talk about like the longevity part, is that something where you're thinking there's things I want to do in my life and there's that you want to live before potentially settling down?
A lot of traveling I want to do. Nothing flash, just more traveling. And I just think that we live in such a beautiful, huge world. And the business has allowed me to explore this world even for 2 to 3 days. And I've, absolutely loved solo traveling, and I got the bug for it. And I was like, oh my God, I can do it. Don't get me wrong, I've had a couple of episodes where I felt very nervous and unsafe, and I've had to go into a hotel and get a taxi. Not that it should be considered normal, but it comes at a higher risk being a female. So yes, solo traveling as a female, you have to be really on your guard and have things in place for SOS, etc. Like I've got apps and things. And then I just thought, I would love to have children, but now I used to think 35 years old, which is hilarious.
We all did.
I know, I thought I was 100 years old, but no, I feel very, very young. But yes, I just thought it's not my time to have a baby. I want to move house, etc. There's a lot of business goals that I want to achieve and nursing goals. I'm going back to uni in October to do some specialism in my nursing. And yes, so it's just to keep the fertility of your eggs. You've got to think of what happens when you get older as a female. And to enrich my eggs and keep my eggs as juicy as possible, I'm increasing. So yes, I'm J-Lo now because all the celebs do it. So yeah.
Is that called following the trends?
Oh, that's what I was just about to say. Trends.
Yeah. No, this is genuine. No,
I know.
Everybody's been freezing their eggs for years. They've just had more accessibility, but us mere peasants can now freeze their eggs.
No, it is certainly something that, because I'm in a similar boat to you. So I'm single, but I have a son. I have a 2-year-old. Yeah, Christian is a dad
also
as
has
well.
a 2-year-old.
Yeah, they're very similar ages, our sons. But I'm single, and what you were saying there about the solo travel piece, I think that's something that. So I haven't done it yet. I have to be honest. And there was the second part of this podcast where I've said we'll talk about aesthetics, but then finding like your happiness and things.
Yeah,
How have you found doing those sorts of things? Or like character building and.
Yeah. So mine was stemmed from, unfortunately, we were told my dad's heart was incompatible with life. So he did say at the time when we believed he was potentially not going to live, he said, give me grandkids. And he said, I don't want you to date any more idiots. You promised me. And I was like, I promise you. And he said, my dad's travelled everywhere. He's been all over the world. He's been very lucky. He's travelled the world and lived in Saudi and Canada and America, Mexico, everywhere. And he said, you must travel. You promised me you'll travel. I said, I will travel. So very quickly I realised, okay, so that's my dad's wishes and I will make them happen. And I did book New York. I booked it at the wrong time because it was the only time I could afford, and I did it on the basis of I potentially was going to lose my dad. He's here now and he's okay, but anyways. So I was really scared going to New York, but I felt very safe, the predominance of English speakers. And I realised I was just one of millions. I had a couple of episodes where I was a bit nervous. I was in a bar, a man came over, he was asking me where I was from, where I was, and what hotel I was staying in. And he gave me his business card, and I did feel potentially in potential danger. He wasn't doing anything as such, but I felt a little bit nervous. And I did have to pay $100 to get home, which I would have just got the tube. Solo traveling was the best thing I've ever done. Soon after that, I went to Malaga. That was amazing. And I just pretended to be one of the locals, to be fair. You've got to not look like a tourist, and nobody bothers you. If you look like a tourist, then they will talk to you. And I just had one episode in a hotel where a German man was a little bit inappropriate, and I just stayed with the hotel manager and got a taxi. So in the grand scheme of things, that was manageable episodes where I felt unsafe as a lone traveller. But they have been absolutely amazing. You have to grow up quite quickly. You have to find your feet. You have to use local services. You have to navigate. You have to be comfortable with sitting by yourself and having a meal, which some people are freaked out at. But it's actually very enriching. It's really good.
Yeah, do you know what? I travel quite a lot by myself for work. So regularly, most than anywhere to London, but not quite some of the places you've just said. And it's one of those where, like, I feel really comfortable in those environments.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's more getting on a plane, going abroad, sitting by a pool, and thinking. Now what?
Looking at me.
Now what? You read a book and then it's like.
Nah, that's not what you want traveling. Like, for me, I think that's a big part of like life. Everyone is like hyper focused, especially this day with Instagram and stuff, about like seeing the world. And I've got friends who've moved to Australia, never came back, by the way.
Yeah,
I've also got friends who've went to Australia, went to Canada, Thailand, all that kind of stuff. You see it on social media and you genuinely think, like, what am I doing with my life? I'm sat
Yeah.
in Newcastle in the misery while these look like they're living the absolute best lives.
Yeah.
And it is one of those things where it's really hard when you've got kids to even think of the idea of doing that.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that's a really, like, especially from what you've experienced with your dad's condition and what you thought was going to happen and stuff, it's a really sensible thing to think, well, look, I'm going to have to make the decision to be a bit selfish to say, like, look, I do want kids, but I have to put that on hold while I look after myself and do the goals I want in life. Because I think some people feel, I don't want to say pressured into, settling down and having kids by a certain age, or
pressure. I'm the minority out of my circle. Like, they're married, they've got kids, they've got shit to do. They're not, they're not bothered about, like in my House of Individuals page, they've got children to feed, which I totally get. They're not going to be like, oh, let's share Sophie's page. And I'm like, it's fine, but they've got their own lives to live, and it's hardcore, it's heavy, it's busy. And another thing, just touching back on aesthetics, I get so many mums that'll say, I've lost my full identity. I'm just mum.
Yeah.
And dads, predominantly mum. Then they go, I am exhausted. I can't remember when I last went to the toilet by myself. So aesthetics plays its role in restoration of self as well. But yes, I know what you mean. It's very hard being a parent. So credit to both of you.
If it makes you feel better, it's not just mum. Dad does not also go to the toilet by himself or do anything without. Yeah. Well, it might be in some places, but nah, not in my household.
Very true.
Yeah. So I suppose I'll ask a little bit, unless there's anything massive that we haven't talked about that you'd like to talk about, Sophie. I think we've covered most of it.
No, I just forgot to mention a big thank you as well. I hope you don't mind. This is in keeping with mental health. We had another patient. I can't say anything because consent was not given because it is under the umbrella of mental health and things. But it's a bit of a random one, but we did have a super fan in our department of I don't know, do you know MC Tazzle?
Yes, I've seen all of these posts actually. This is
love a bit of MC Tazzle.
That's a big thing. And MC Tazzle did an amazing video for the patient, made it super personal. It was actually very moving. I wish I could say more, but I forgot. Not disrespectfully, it just slipped my mind, but it's important to get him as a mention because, I mean, hundreds of people messaged about that one, and it went massive. So I just want to say thank you to MC Tazzle for supporting that patient's mental health. So that was another important part of his recovery.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, nothing else to mention. Thank you.
The other one would be, where can people find you? How can people get in touch? All those sorts of things. We're gonna do some shameless promotion here.
In fact, I'm going to full screen you for this because I'm really conscious that you've made a very nice background, and I've cut your background out for this entire thing, and you've really put effort in. Ready? Here we go.
Oh, blesses. Full screen. Do you like do you know what an autonomous reef is? That's sexist me saying that.
Don't have a clue.
No clue. MC Tazzle, you had us. Autumnally, no clue.
It's just a pumpkin-based wreath with a lovely candle. It's very aesthetically pleasing. So where you can find me is mainly on Instagram at House of Individuals, and I'm located in the Walker area, so quite central to Newcastle, and I'm on Facebook at House of Individuals as well. And my email is houseofindividuals@gmail.com, and you can just contact me whenever you want. It seems to be a 24-hour service that I provide, which I love to do.
Which I am not disappointed in doing at all because I have no life.
Absolutely.
My life is my work. That's it. No, absolutely. I would say, Sophie, this has been an incredibly interesting episode because we've never spoke about something like this. So it was definitely new territory for a group of men talking about aesthetics, especially when group of men, we're men.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Who, especially when none of us have had anything done, as far as I'm aware. I haven't, so I'm guessing the other two haven't.
Talk for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Talk for myself. And yeah, I think there's things we've talked about today where there's probably other episodes we can possibly get you to come back on as well, because I think you initially liked a post where I said, if you're interested in coming on the podcast, it, which is awesome. So something we're gonna start doing, and this is for people who will be listening as well. We're gonna start having episodes where it's not necessarily just focused on a guest. It could be focused on numerous topics, and we get the everyday person's opinion on various topics, and we debate it, or we talk about it, or we come up with our ideas, opinions, all those sorts of things. Because I think where we can really make a difference in society, and this is ultimately what we're trying to do, is encourage people to, one, have an opinion, but two, have an opinion and be open to changing that opinion based on other people's. We're all creatures of habit, but creatures of our environments, and lots of our opinions, experiences shape the way we are as people. And by getting people from different backgrounds together to talk, that can ultimately help people live a better life.
Yeah, that sounds beautiful. And thank you both, and Dean, for being so gracious in the conversation. You've all been you presented as three true gentlemen. You were wonderful with me, so thank you, because I was a bit nervous. So I just want to thank you all, and you're all doing amazing with your podcast. You should be very proud of yourselves, and credit to your family as well.
Legend. Thank you. We're just normal blokes trying to make a difference. That's all. We do actually have a female host in Yaz, but she seems to be living it up in Ibiza more than she's ever in the UK at the moment. So
go ahead.
Yeah, she is smashing life. But yeah, so honestly, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We are so grateful. Sounds like you do some amazing things. But yeah.
Okay, I'll speak to you soon. Take care, lads.
Yeah. Thank you. Cheers, Joe. Bye-bye.
I don't know how to leave.